Electro Dragon spam is far too OP, lazy, and mindless. Electro Dragons are far too OP. Electro Dragon is so annoying. E-Drag spammers won't go away. Today, we'll be talking about the most hated troop in Clash of Clans, the Electro Dragon, which is also commonly used as the only troop in an entire army because of just how OP it is. We will be going over the history of the E-Drag, some of the most OP attacking methods, and how it has changed Clash of Clans forever. It first came out with the Town Hall 12 update on June 11th of 2018, but the E-Drag was unlockable at Town Hall 11. Some people were confused by this since Town Hall 12 is obviously very electric, so it would make sense for the Electro Dragon to be unlocked at that stage, but for some reason you can unlock it at Town Hall 11. But for whatever reason, that's how they made it, and I think that has really contributed to the E-Drags being so broken and so hated. Almost as soon as they came out, people realized just how good they were, and they created multiple army compositions and attacking strategies based around this new troop. The one that was the most popular was just filling your camps with as many E-Drags as possible and putting in some other troops if you had leftover space. That, plus a bunch of lightning spells and a siege machine donated by a Town Hall 12 in your clan, made this attacking strategy extremely effective and almost a guaranteed 3-star against any Town Hall 11s. And while there are other attacking strategies that are very good and can also almost always guarantee a 3-star, the thing that made this strategy so OP and so hated was that there was basically no skill involved. All you needed to do was lightning spell 2 to 3 air defenses and then just spam the E-Drags in a line, and then sit back and watch the enemy base get destroyed. And your heroes just made the strategy even stronger because the king and queen could be good for luring clan castle troops, or just tanking a little bit, and the warden in air mode could help the E-Drags against seeking air mines. So realistically, the only skill required for this attack is knowing when to use a hero's ability and just not missing the screen when deploying your troops. Meaning that even a 5-year-old could easily 3-star you if they somehow got their hands on this army. Which is what makes this troop so hated because it's seen as a cheap and scummy strategy. And I'm gonna be honest, I absolutely used and abused this strategy when I unlocked E-Drags at Town Hall 11 and used them well into Town Hall 12 before I started using other strategies, since it honestly was getting a little boring. But I use a slightly different strategy which I think is even better than the first one. This one is extremely similar, except you also add some balloons into the mix. It plays out almost the exact same, except you just add a line of balloons behind the E-Drags, and this is an absolutely lethal combination, especially against Town Hall 11. But I have also seen it work very well against higher Town Halls like Town Hall 13, and obviously this strategy also requires little to no skill. And you would think that Supercell would try and nerf them, but that is the exact opposite of what happened. In fact, the first 2 updates after their release reduced the gem and training costs, since, well, one of the downsides was the cost and time to train the E-Drags. In 2020, there was another update which could be seen as both a nerf or a buff, and that was the E-Drags targeting higher HP buildings. This was really a circumstantial thing, and sometimes it helped the player and sometimes it didn't. But overall, it wasn't really too big of a deal. And in 2022, they were made slightly faster, so overall, they haven't actually gotten any direct nerfs. So instead, people had to try and figure it out for themselves. This led to them designing bases just around the E-Drag, with sites like Clash of Clans layouts getting anti-air/Electro Dragon tags for base designs for all Town Halls ranging from 11 to 15. These bases heavily focused on making sure air defenses were far away enough so people couldn't destroy 2 at once with 1 round of lightning spells, and also making sure the buildings were perfectly spaced out enough so the chain ability on the E-Drags wouldn't be that effective. These bases also really focused on having perfect placements for air mines and air sweepers, as air sweepers could basically stop an E-Drag without a haste or raid spell helping it. And there have been numerous times where my attacks have been stopped because of one air sweeper. The game for anyone 10 or 11 or higher has been changed by the E-Drags, and most people absolutely hate it when they get attacked by an army using them. But the E-Drags can also be bad for the attacker if it's one of the defending clearing castle troops. Yup, it's almost as OP defense wise as it is offense wise. And just like the Air Sweeper is the main counter for offensive E-Drags, the Poison Spell is the main counter for a defensive E-Drag. This spell basically doesn't let the E-Drag get a hit off and gives enough time for the attacking troops or heroes to kill it. But if you don't have a poison spell, a defending E-Drag can be very annoying to deal with. Because, well, it can chain zap troops just like it does buildings. And it is also relatively tanky, so usually it can get a few zaps off before dying, which can sometimes break the attack. There have been many people complaining over the years saying how the E-Drags are too OP and require no skill, but let's also look at it from another perspective. Let's look at why E-Drags might actually be good for the game. As mentioned earlier, one of the biggest problems is that the E-Drags don't require skill to use. But that may also be one of the biggest positives. Let me explain. There are two types of players, the casual player and the competitive player. The casuals make up the majority of the player base for all games, and these players don't have time to learn new metas and mechanics, or they just simply can't be bothered to learn a big complex army. This is where the E-Drags come in, since they're very easy to use and basically perfect for casual players. It allows them to enjoy the game while getting good progress done, and this causes them to stick around. Especially considering that the E-Drags are a viable strategy for all town hall levels from 11 to 15. Sure, you may not be able to get a 3-star all the time higher up, but casual players care more about just progressing and leveling up than getting the most trophies or getting on the leaderboard. They also go through the game a lot slower, and the E-Drags are perfect since they're reliable and the casual players won't have to try and learn new strategies just to not lose a battle. And E-Drags are also perfect for when you're just upgrading your hero, since you don't actually really need the heroes when attacking with them. This all really helps retain the casual players, and I think is the reason that Supercell isn't nerfing the E-Drags, since they help keep a lot of players playing. The biggest reason they're considered the most hated troop is because the competitive players hate them, and the competitive players are also the vocal minority that speak up about these things. Normal players just don't care and will continue to play the game whatever way they find best. As for the competitive players, well, they still have plenty of options and can play with whatever armies they want, but I definitely do understand their frustration when they're playing to compete but wake up and some random person just 2 or 3 stars their base with an Electro Dragon spam strategy and take a bunch of trophies. So, overall, the Electro Dragon is definitely the most hated troop, but it's only hated by the vocal minority of players, not the silent majority. The silent majority will still continue to use the E-Drags and have fun with them, since overall it is a really good troop and extremely easy to use.